Welcome to Take the Lead Radio with Dr. Diane Hamilton, where she interviews some of the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, and other individuals who will inspire you to take the lead in your career and personal life. And now, here is Dr. Diane Hamilton.
I am here with Kevin Harrington, who is the inventor of the Infomercial, of course, and the original shark on Shark Tank, and now the author of Mentor to Millions. It's so nice to have you here, Kevin.
Hey, Diane, thanks for having me. Let's have some fun today.
We are going to have fun. We had fun the last time we met, except for how hot it was. But it was a wonderful event, and it was so nice to meet you in person. And I'm so glad we got a chance to follow up with this. I want to start with, because so many people know you, but in case they don't know kind of your path to how you got to be a shark and start infomercials and all that, can you give just a little backstory on you?
Sure. So it goes way back. So I'll be brief, but I'm one of 6 kids. Grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was the 4th child. I had a couple older sisters, and my dad was a bartender, but he wanted to be an entrepreneur. So he saved up enough money, and he said, "Kevin, I've opened up my first bar, Harrington's Irish Pub. I'd like for you to come in and learn about working inside the family business, et cetera, et cetera." So I was washing dishes and serving tables and all that, but he also would bring me into the back room at the end of the day when he'd count the money and show me, hey, the bar business is more profitable. Food business, we've got waste and it cooks and all kinds of overhead. And so anyway, make a long story short, I learned enough about that business that I knew I never wanted to be in the restaurant or bar business. Okay. Because my dad worked 18-hour days. If they were open at lunch and they closed at 2:30 in the morning. So 6 days a week. And so I was working a 40-hour week, but finally he said, "Kevin, you should start your own business now." And I was I was 11 when I started, 15 when he mentored me to start my own business. It was just a driveway sealing business, sealing asphalt driveways in Cincinnati, but I was knocking on doors. I put a sign up on the place that I did the driveway. I take a before and after picture and then show the neighbors, and wow, all of a sudden I could pick up 15, 18, 20 in a neighborhood after I did the first driveway. So this was a great business. Then I got into college and my dad said, you've got to pay for your own education, books, tuition, room and board, insurances, everything. So I said, I can't do it on driveway sealing. I said, I needed to start something fresh. I started a heating and air conditioning business. And I was a freshman in college installing furnaces and air conditioning systems, believe it or not. But what I was doing was I created a sales system. I was getting the list of new homeowners. So imagine this, you just bought a new house, biggest purchase you may ever make. And we call you and say, hey, don't turn that furnace on until you get a free safety check. We'll perform that check and we'll also clean the furnace. So we were getting 20 new jobs a week, and it came out of all of this. And here I am going to school 5 hours a day in between. So by my sophomore year in college, I had 25 employees. We were doing the equivalent of 5 to 6 million in sales. And I was going to school 5 hours a day until I finally said, I can't do both. So I quit school and loved what I was doing, selling, but I didn't want to be in heating and air conditioning my whole life. Sold that business to one of my employees a couple of years later. And then I transitioned into something pretty exciting. I wanted my education, some way, somehow. I didn't get it in college because I went to the University of Cincinnati, 30,000 plus students. My very first class was 800 kids, orientation to business. And the teacher wasn't there. There was a video playing. Sorry, I can't be here today. And you're going to have to learn from this video. So I said, if he can't make it, I don't know that I need to be here. Make a long story short, I started a business brokerage company because I wanted an education on small business. So I was selling pizza parlors, restaurants, delicatessens, flower shops, restaurants, small manufacturing companies. But what did I have in order to sell these companies? I had all their information, their books and records, their tax statements, their financials, everything. And so this was an education to me because I had 15 salespeople working inside my brokerage company, selling businesses. I owned the company. We were selling dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of businesses and franchises. And I saw all the inside tracks of all these companies, their sales, their leases, their ups, their downs, their percentages. If it was a restaurant, what were their food costs? What were their their throw out costs of damaged a product that was no longer fresh, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a turning point for me of getting really good education, but also I started investing and partnering with a lot of these companies. So when I did get that phone call from Mark Burnett, this was part of my background of being involved with hundreds and then thousands of different small businesses. And so here I was, an entrepreneur, and I just ordered cable TV, and this was the changing point in my life. I got cable TV, 30 channels. And I get to the last channel, so ESPN, sports, MTV, music, HBO, movies. I get to channel 30 and there's nothing on. And I called the cable company and I said, hey, there's a problem. I love this 29 channel cable thing that I'm getting, but there's nothing on the last channel, channel 30. And they said, oh yeah, that's Discovery Channel. It's a brand new channel. They only program 18 hours a day because they don't have a budget for 24 hours. So we're just going to give you 18 hours a day and then 6 hours of dead air. And I'm like, what's dead air? They said, it's nothing. And I said, I mean, 6 hours of nothing is going to be just coming in. They said, well, we're going to put bars up on the channel. So that's when the light bulb went off. And I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm too entrepreneurial. I got too many businesses and products and deals and things. I'm going to fill that airtime. Let's cut a deal. Went down, and that's what we did. We started selling products inside that 6 hour block. I then signed a multi-year contract to own Discovery Channel for 6 hours a day, 365 days a year for a number of years nationwide. And that then was when the infomercial industry started. This was the early days of I call it really the birth of the modern day infomercial. They call me the creator of the infomercial because nobody was doing this before that. And we were filling it with kitchen products, you know, Jack LaLange and the Juicer, the Ginsu, George Foreman, Tony Little and Fitness, you name it. This was the early days. And of course, that company went public on the New York Stock Exchange, and we built it to a $500 million a year business. And that's when I got the call from Mark Burnett to go on Shark Tank. That kind of brings you up to speed. Sorry it took so long, but that's my background.
And that's the abbreviated version when I was reading. Yeah. What's amazing, first of all, I just congratulate you on just an amazing career. And if I knew you had that air conditioning background, I might have taken you up at an event. It was awfully hot, but it was, it's interesting to know, first of all, what was the first infomercial that you came up with? The absolute first, do you remember?
Well, yeah. And so I very seldom tell the story this way, but you asked the question. So I actually, because I was a business broker selling businesses, the very first thing I did is I put 20 businesses for sale in the show and I interviewed the people, and I interviewed the head of the Small Business Administration who said, we can give you financing. It was called the Own Your Own Business Show. And so I had a co-host, and we would talk to the business owner who was selling his business. And he said, I've had it for 20 years. It's time to retire. And here it is. And boom. And then we'd have a franchise. And then if you see today, you'll see sometimes these real estate shows where they show houses on the weekends. I was showing businesses back in the early 80s on cable television. And so, but then we went to products, and one of the first products was Ginsu knives, also a product called the Food Saver. It's a vacuum food sealer. So in the early days, the products were kind of gadgets. They were kind of housewares and home products, hardware, Billy Mays, Tony Little, fitness, and all that kind of stuff. But we actually started with lead generation for business opportunity sales.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember when we were signing off for today at midnight or whatever, the stations, we used to have like 3 stations in the old days. And so it's amazing to see the transition and to be such a big part of that. That's got to be such a great feeling to know that you had such an impact. And of course, that led to quite a bit of attention to you. So when you got that call about Shark Tank, did you know it was going to be what it was going to be? What was your initial insight on it?
When I first talked to Mark Burnett, I said, so Mark, I know all about you. What's Shark Tank? He said, well, I can't tell you over the phone because you got to sign some papers. Come on out here, get out here within the next 2 weeks because we're making some decisions. And so I said, okay, I'll come see you. And I got off the phone and I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to go see Mark Burnett. He's a famous TV producer. He's thinking, it might be good for a new show that he's doing. And she said, oh, what's it all about? I said, well, it's called Shark Tank. He won't tell me over the phone. And she said, oh, I know why he won't tell you. What does he do to those people on that Survivor show? He said, what's he going to do to people on Shark Tank? Okay. And so she was kidding me, but I'm like, he said it's a business show, so I don't know. So anyway, she was just giving me a little poke in the ribs, like, hey, what is Shark Tank? Well, listen, until you saw the first episode, nobody knew what Shark Tank was. In fact, when I finally sat down with Mark, I said, okay, so I'm really curious. How is Shark Tank a business show? Oh, with inventors, and people with ideas or businesses, they get 3 minutes to come out and they're going to pitch to a panel of 5 sharks. The 5 sharks, if you're one of them, you get 3 minutes to make up your mind whether you're interested. And if so, you negotiate against your other sharks to get the deal. And I said, wow, Mark, you won't believe this, but if that's what you call a shark, I've been doing that for 35 years. Yeah. So I'm already a shark. He says, what do you mean? I said, I go to the houseware show, the hardware show, the fitness show, the beauty show, the toy fair, the PGA golf fair. And what do? I take pitches from people with products. And literally, I've been doing that for 35 years. So Mark said, great, let's do a little audition. I did, and the rest is history. But Shark Tank it's the #1 business reality show in the history of television. It's airing all around the world. And I had a good run, 175 segments that I did on Shark Tank. And they just keep rerunning them over and over and over, which is pretty cool. All over the world, by the way. So there's sharks in Mexico. They actually do a local version of Shark Tank with, like, in Mexico, they have Mexican sharks. In Israel, Israeli sharks.
They don't dub your face with somebody else's voice.
They started dubbing us in the local language. And then if they got a good acceptance, then they went and produced their own local show. So in various markets around the world, you'll see the American show dubbed into the local language, and you'll see some of these local versions also running. They have local versions in about 10 countries, so not in every country. So, but it's been a very powerful format, and some companies have done pretty well off Shark Tank.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing. And I include a lot of talk about that in a lot of the courses I teach. And so you get mentioned quite often. And I know you've done so much for that show and so much in general, but lately your latest venture, you have a new book, and I wanted to talk about that in our final time. You co-wrote with Mark Tim, and I, of course, me, I'm going to go right to chapter 3 because it's about curiosity. But give me a little backstory on, I love how curious you are. And I love that Zig is your mentor and that you mentioned Zig. I want to talk about the hologram thing. That was interesting. But give me a little story about what made you want to write this book. And I want to hear more.
So I've had a lot of great mentors in my life. I mentioned my father mentored me when I was 11 and then 15 and the rest of my life. And he was an amazing man. And so, but there were certain things he was good at and other things that he wasn't. And so I needed help in other areas. Zig Ziglar was one of the greatest sales trainers in the world. And in 1984, when I started doing infomercials, his book came out, Secrets of Closing the Sale. And I was utilizing many of his closing techniques in the techniques of closing sales in infomercials. So I ended up hooking up with the Ziglar group and getting mentored by Zig in the world of sales training and motivation and also mindset, et cetera, because Zig had many different great teachings and thousands of hours, as well as 35 books. But when he passed away, in talking to Tom Ziegler and Julie and the family, I found out that Zig was never really a social media guy, because he was in his 80s when he died, and this is 10 years ago. So Facebook and Instagram barely existed. And so when he died, they put a Facebook page up to leave a tribute to Zig, and over 5 million people have now joined Zig Ziglar's Facebook page. A deceased man, which is pretty amazing, shows the power that Zig Ziglar had in the world. But Mark Tim was also a mentee of Zig's, and Tom Ziglar said, "You guys need to talk." I became a mentor to Mark. Tom got involved with all of us, and then then came the concept of the book, that mentors have changed all of our lives. I've had many other mentors, and still to this day have a number of mentors. And so Mark and I wrote the book, and it's about a journey that we take. Mark and I'm the mentor, and Mark is the mentee. And one of the chapters, as you mentioned, is something that you've studied, and something that I believe has been very powerful for me. And I've called it, whether it's a curiosity overload or aggressive curiosity, I find that for me, this has been very powerful, because my father, this is one of the things my father taught me. He worked 80 plus hours a week, 18-hour days. And on a Sunday, when he had a day off, he'd have a stack of journals and books and trade show information beside him, and he'd be going through it. And I'm like, "Dad, this is your day off. What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, you have to stay on top of what's the latest and greatest. I'm too busy working during the week. I need to know, maybe there's some new food cooking techniques, and reading the journals and going to the trade shows." So I would go to the trade shows with him, and he was in the restaurant business. But for me, selling businesses, now I became aggressively curious in many industries, not just restaurants, because he was there, but in laundromats, and in flower shops, and in dry cleaners, and drugstores, and manufacturing companies, and hardwares and housewares. And so I started getting very curious to see all of the things that were going on at these trade shows. And to this day, it's still a big part of what I do. I do, of course, now with COVID, most of the trade shows have been canceled, including the biggest one of the year, the Consumer Electronics Show, which is in January coming up. It'll be virtual again, but it is what it is. And we've had a tough run with COVID, but there are still amazing ways to stay aggressively curious over the internet, which you and I'm sure, are doing quite a bit of. So anyway, that's how we came about with writing the book. And the launch has been great. We've had a lot of great feedback from people, and we hit number 2 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, which is very, very cool, because that's based on data and sales. And so we had some really crushing weeks of big success. And thanks for having me on today, because we're continuing to get the word out about the book Mentor to Millions. And that's just one chapter, but I'm glad that you cued in on that one. So,
well, I love the whole mentor thing, and I'm on a board with, was on the board of DocuSign with Mr. Wonderful, and different people from Keith Crockett put together. And we started this other group, this mentoring group called the Global Mentor Network. And I am really fascinated in how much mentorship is going to be the next huge topic that people, you couldn't be more on topic than you are right now, because everybody is really discussing this. And Zig, of course, was a huge influence in my time as well, because he was the guy. And I've had Tom on the show, and it's great to hear all these connections. I'm curious, how would you define mentorship? Because I talk to students about this quite a lot in my courses. And how is it different than coaching or something else?
Well, I think there's different levels of mentorship. Mm-hmm. When I think of coaching, I generally think of a fee-based kind of a service. There's a lot of coaches out there, and coaches, this is their business. This is how they get compensated. It's generally fee-based. Mentorship takes on a little different kind of help. And I believe that, there's one true kind of mentorship, and this is where there's no monetary involvement. I have a lot of people that I coach, I use the wrong word, that I mentor. Mm-hmm. And this is just me giving back to my entrepreneurial roots and the entrepreneurial community that I've been involved with. I also, I don't know if you know this, Diane, but I was one of the co-founders of the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, way back, right? Yeah. And this was all about mentoring. We said, Vern Harnish, myself, Mike Dell, we said, we're young entrepreneurs. We need help. Let's set up an entrepreneurs organization where everybody gets mentors, and that's called your forum. And so there's people that have been involved with EO that have had a mentoring meeting every month for dozens of years, and it's very powerful. So, and this is, once you join EO, that's all part of it. It's free. And so mentors take a look at not just your business life, in many cases, your personal life, maybe some things that are happening in your personal life that are interfering with business. And I try not to get too involved in too much of the personal side, but oftentimes I find that there's an obstacle there that needs to be addressed before the business can be run properly. And I had many challenges in my life, with my personal life over the years. I've been married twice now, and my wife and I, second wife, we've been together 14 or 15 years now, and it's been amazing. Mm-hmm. But the first time around was not so good for me. And I actually had some business mentors that helped me through a challenging time back in the earlier days. And it's going back 35 years now, because that's when I had these challenges before. So I think a real mentor is going to look at all the things you're doing in business, in life, personal, social, business, and really look out for you as a whole being and how they can help you overcome the challenges that you have and create a more successful business and also personal life. And with Mark and I, it also there were some things geared around his home and his family, and some very powerful transformations that occurred during the book's kind of a timeline that we followed.
I mean, you brought up so many great things, and I've loved having Vern on the show. Got to meet him here at the Genius Network, and then he was on the show later, and we talked a lot about that, what he's working on with all of that. And it's so important when you talk about all these things in terms of mentorship. I've had a lot of people where we've discussed curiosity and its impact on being a success in business. And I'm curious about what you're seeing is like the biggest factor that is holding people back that you're working on. I mean, you mentioned the personal overlaps a little bit here and there and that, but is there one mistake that you're seeing more often than others in leaders and people trying to run businesses?
Well, I mean, so I deal with all kinds of people. I deal at the base level, inventors, entrepreneurs getting started. So I deal with business startups. I deal with companies that are in business and expanding. And then I deal at the highest level. I'm on 9 public boards also. And you mentioned DocuSign, and that's an amazing company to be involved with. Mm-hmm. I got involved with a little company called Celsius. It's an energy drink product. Actually, I can show it to you right here. Just finished one. I got involved with this company when it was.
Peach. I like peach.
Yeah, this was a $2 million company 6 years ago. We're 1.7 billion now, and we're in 165,000 stores. 1.7 billion.
Amazing.
And so I'm on the board and founding board member, and I love this. And so let me tell you what I see as some challenges on the beginning entrepreneur entry level. There's a lot of people just wanting to wait, and there some people just, when the COVID first hit, buried their head in the sand, like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I got to just wait this out and see. Now me, I immediately looked at the metrics, and I saw, first of all, when COVID first hit, people were home because the businesses were closed. So now you've got computer usage and television viewership was spiking at all-time highs.
Yeah.
At the same time, you had advertising dropping to all-time lows because the restaurants were closed. There were no concerts. There's no stores to advertise about sales. And so you had huge increase in viewership a tremendous decrease in advertisers. This delta provided amazing opportunity for customer acquisition.
Right.
So companies like myself and all the companies we were involved with, we went very aggressively after customer acquisition. And if you ever heard of the company called Beachbody, Carl Deichler, for example, he's a $1 billion business. He was hitting the airwaves with, I've got $8,500 in video programs available for you, absolutely free. Just call this number. And he was acquiring hundreds of thousands of customers. Unbelievable. So the smart people were going after e-commerce strategies and customer acquisition and things like that, but also reframing their offerings to what the market was looking for. And because, for example, we had some products 15 years ago in hardware categories, the magic saw, the magic wrench, the magic hammer. And I said, you know what? These might be good today because people are staying home. They're doing more, do-it-yourself projects around the house. So we started going for housewares and hardwares and fitness, and we pivoted. And I think this is key, is that when things change, you need to pivot. And so, for example, our company, I mentioned Celsius. Yeah. Here's a company that's in their competitors are Red Bull and Monster. These are huge companies. Yeah. And it's all about retail distribution. But guess what? I said, that's what the past has been. What we did at Celsius, and this took us from a $300 million company to $1.7 billion in less than 9 months' time. And what we did, we focused on direct to the consumer. Okay, so here's a product that you could find at Publix, you could find it at Kroger's, you could find it at GNC and vitamin shops, but we got into the business of influencers, Instagram influencers, direct to the public, Amazon, etc. And we've got over 1,000 fitness influencers now really pitching the product direct to the consumer. So again, pivots are necessary. And I think the key thing is you can't just sit and wait. And one of my other books was called Act Now. Okay, because I said inventors are always coming to me and saying, oh, I've had this idea for 10 years. What do you think? And I'm like, well, what do I think? I think you should have done this 10 years ago, but why did you wait 10 years, right? So in other words, now is the time. If you wait, your competition is going to get whatever opportunities are out there.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to end because I think a lot of people need to act now. I'm very excited about your book, Mentor to Millions. Thank you, the great Kevin Harrington. Where can people follow you and find you?
So my website is kevinharrington.tv, and that's a great place. I've got all kinds of downloads and free things there. And on the book, if they want to get a copy of the book, they can go to Amazon or kevinmentor.com. You can also get it there too. So a couple different places, Amazon, kevinmentor.com, kevinharrington.tv. And thank you so much. It's good seeing you. And hopefully the next time will be a little cooler and not so sweaty where we were the last time.
That was brutal, but it was so nice to see you again. And we will be back right after this message.